Guys, Dr. Scott here again. As I said in one of the first videos I had done, I talked about how you get started, or at least my opinion and recommendation on getting started an exercise plan. A few times through that lecture, I talked about how I could have one devoted, short talk about a few elements of that talk. Today, what I want to talk about is the number one excuse people have for either not starting an exercise program, diet program, clump it all together, is I don't have time, okay? Which, I do try to stay somewhat professional here, but it's probably the biggest excuse people have, and, I really hate to say it, but people are probably, full of what when they say it. There are exceptions, without a doubt. God forbid you're taking care of a sick loved one, family member, child, you're sick yourself, we know that's a big time constraint, or maybe you're a single parent. So there's definitely excuses. I don't want to sound so aggressive and not sympathetic to that, but let's be honest, all right? Most people, and I see it in my office, I've seen it for 20 some odd years, and I was even guilty of it myself at times, is that you have a long day, you're trying to pay bills, you're working, and you think you take that busyness and you think it's, that's enough. Or, you have a carpenter or even a laborer, carpenter, electrician, plumber, who's very active, dock builder. I've had a few of them come through my office too. Very physical job, but it's really not the same thing that we're talking about. You really need to stop the excuses. So, when you look at your week, all right, and, people will say, I don't have time, I work long hours. All right, well, if you're working, especially if you're working, 8 to 5, 9 to 4, whatever it may be, you usually have some time. I mean, most of the time, if you're looking at your schedule, and I said this on the last video in passing, and someone will say, oh, did you see the latest episode of Game of Thrones, or the, whatever talk show, or watching. Maybe they're very big on politics. They watch CNN. Why are you, at least if you just feel you can't get away from the television, why don't you have a treadmill or a bike or whatever exercise you want to do in front of the television? Why aren't you maybe between commercials doing your stretches? I mean, I talk to patients all the time about doing stretches. I don't have time. I'll be honest with you, I never did it. All right, I haven't done them. And we know, and I won't go into that tangent about how their care is also based on what they do, but, between commercials, do some planks, do the hamstring stretching if you can't do it while you're sitting there. It doesn't always have to be cardiovascular exercise. It can be just simple core exercises. Maybe you have to get up an extra half hour, 45 minutes in the morning, okay? Now listen, I get it. I can't in that one video address every single patient's schedule. Maybe you're an early riser. Maybe some of my guys go into the city. They're up at 3 in the morning. They can't do in the morning. Okay. A lot of them, if they're going at 3, 4 in the morning, they're done at 2, 3 in the afternoon. You have time. Get outside. You don't need a lot of equipment. All right. Put your shoes on. Go for a run. If you have a bike, get a bike. Okay. Again, the excuses I've had up to here with why you can't do it. Other things, like I said, if they're watching television, having the bike or the treadmill in front of the TV, going out, put, your iPod or whatever music player on, get outside. Actually may even help you mentally because just with the exercises. But again, there's always the excuse of, I don't have time. Other things to look at or to ponder is what's your schedule like on the weekend. And I talk about when you're getting into the exercise program, is that I mentioned the other video, is to pick the days that are kind of have the leave the least amount of footprint on your week or your day. Meaning that if you're off a typical weekend, or you're off Wednesdays, or your early day is Wednesday, pick that. Try to do it. I usually recommend trying to do it first thing in the morning. I mean, I know in my lifestyle, especially when I was training for the Ironman, and hopefully another one, somewhere down the road, if I don't get that workout done in the morning. So, I mean, I had to get up 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. It's tough in November, December when it's dark, okay? I don't want to get into bed either. All right, it's cold. May, it's a little bit easier. It's light around 5 o'clock in the Northeast in May or June. So, if you have kids, you have to maybe go do it first thing in the morning. Now, if you can't do it in the morning, or your work schedules that doesn't cooperate, or your kid's schedule, do in the afternoon. You take your kids to football practice, soccer practice. A lot of times there's a track there, or there's a park. I see with my son's lacrosse, and even my older son doing track. You can exercise and run sometimes. Sometimes you can't, I get it. But there's a lot of times you can do different things during the day. If you keep using excuses, okay, unfortunately, you're going to be less active. You're going to have more chance of injuries. You're probably going to put on some more weight. Other things, so going back to picking out those days. So if you Sundays and Saturdays, just say, hey, look, every Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to go in. Don't worry about back-to-back days, okay? People sometimes with treatment and exercise, oh, I worked out on Saturday, I can't work out on Sunday, okay? You may not do the same workout, or you may have to change your intensity levels, or maybe you're doing, different things on those days, okay? But you can get your butt moving on 2 days in a row, all right? It doesn't have to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, all right? The other days, look at, at night, you get home from work, all right? Now, again, some people like myself, I'm done at 7, 7:30, 8, it's tough. Maybe just do a half hour. Maybe, you don't have an hour, hour and a half to do a long run or a long bike ride. Maybe you have to do things on the bike, push a bigger gear, be more intense in that half hour, more interval training, okay? We could talk about, and I'm not gonna bog this talk down, but building lactate threshold, VO2 max, at least trying to improve it as much as you can. Different workouts targeting different things, but your workout doesn't always have to be, well, I ran 6 miles 3 days ago, now I got to run 7 miles, okay? Just get yourself active. And I really feel if you can pick the days that you're not bogged down as much, start there and go. And sometimes you got to look in the mirror and say, stop the excuses, and just get out there and do it. All of us are busy. All of us, unfortunately, are probably going to be busy the rest of our lives. If you're watching this and you're a high school student, right? We all have been there. We think, how busy it is. Then you don't realize until you're in college that you're like, wow, I'm even busier. And it's hard. Then you think you're so bogged down in college. Then you get, married, and you're like, oh my God, I thought I was busy when I was in college. Now I'm married, I have another family, so you can see. Then you get kids. Then you're like, wait, what did it mean that I was busy when I was married? Now I have kids, I'm 50 times busier. So things get more and more difficult. We all have crazy different schedules, but at a certain point, you got to say stop the crap, keep it real, and get your butt outside and do something, or inside. Again, you don't have to buy a lot of equipment. A lot of times people buy equipment, it just becomes a clothes hanger, all right? So pick the days, get out there and do it. And you'll notice that once you start doing it and you get in that rhythm, great. You always feel like if you miss it, it's an addiction, and you want to get out there all the time. Again, there are exceptions, okay? If someone was, commenting on this thread, so-and-so sick, I have someone with this illness, there are exceptions. I know some of you really legitimately don't have time, okay? But I bet that's 5%. And even if you fall into that percentage that doesn't have time, there will be a day that you will have time. And again, going back, people watching television, just do it during commercials. Do what you can do, okay? If you can't get out there and train for a marathon, it doesn't matter. You can't train for Spartan race, at least do something, okay? So again, promise me you'll stop the excuses. I always entertain, if I know you personally, if you have something to try to budget your time and schedule. I don't want this to go, a lot of these lectures to go into always my personal experience. Some people ask me, being a chiropractor, teaching, a new position about to start, and having 2 kids in sports, I run out of time. They're like, how do you do it? How do you train 20 hours a week, 18, 20 hours a week when you're the Ironman? I had to squeeze it all in, okay? Sometimes I wasn't, maybe a little undertrained in certain things, but you got to stop the excuses at a certain point in time, okay? And just get out there and do it. And if you don't have the time, maybe it will come, or just have to do better time budgeting. As much of an advocate of sleep, okay, I'm not going to tell you shouldn't be getting sleep, but like maybe once or twice during the week, you can maybe cut a little bit out, get the exercise in, and then make, make sure you get good solid sleep the other 5 nights a week, all right? I'm not going to tell you, hey, to only get 3 hours, and then that leads to another video, another issue. So again, please stop the excuses, get out there, and just do it, okay? But again, thanks for listening again, and have a great day, guys. Bye.